All right, so we're going to look at knowledge check 18.9.1. Let's go ahead and load Tidyverse and complete journey. All right, number 1. It says create a scatter plot that plots quantity versus sales value across all transactions. Okay, so it doesn't look like we need to do any kind of joining here. We can just use the transaction sample data. And let's go right into ggplot, and we want to plot quantity versus sales value. So let's create our scatter plot here. And the default output looks like this. Okay. So now it says transform the x-axis to a log transformation using scale x log 10. What new insights does this provide? Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to add a new layer here, and we'll just do scale x log 10. Let's apply that. Oop, let's spell it correctly. So here's our new plot where if you notice our x-axis here is plotted on a logarithmic scale. And this definitely gives us some different insights than what we saw before. So we can kind of see the relationship at the lower values, right? So before, if we take this out, recall that we have this linear line here, but then we have all this stuff kind of bunched up near 0, right? We can't really decipher what's going on there. And when we do a logarithmic scale on our x-axis, we kind of pull that part down at the bottom so we can kind of see what kind of pattern we have here between 1 and 10 or 1 to like 20. And then we can see how we actually have more of an exponential rate once we get to the higher values. So then it says now add labels equals scales comma inside. Well, what does this do? Let's go ahead, copy this. Add this directly into scale x log 10. And what you will notice is we now have our x-axis is comma separated for those larger values. So this scales package comes when you install ggplot. Scales comes with that. It automatically gets installed. And it has just some helper functions that we can use to format our x and y axes. All right, let's look at number 2 here. Create a scatter plot that plots sales value versus retail discount across all transactions. Okay, so again, we are just doing a basic scatter plot to get started. So let's look at, we have sales value versus retail discount. And let's go ahead and do geopoint. And we see kind of this uninformative plot that we get right away. And then it says, go ahead and transform the x and y axis with the log scale. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to add scale x log 10, but we're also going to do the same thing to our y axis. Let's see how this looks. Oh, okay, this is interesting. So this definitely, it pulls it apart for both of these x and y axes, and we have this bundling of values down here. So when the sales value is very low values, near 0, it shows that our retail discount tends to be bundled around these values here. But then as our sales value increases to $100 more, we tend to see a lot more retail discount. So this is just telling us that as sales values increase to larger values, we tend to see a lot more retail discounts. What if we only, let's muck around with this and just apply one of them. And in this case, it's the x-axis. We can again see this bundling of retail discounts. Basically, as our sales value increases, we see a lot more larger values of retail discount. Let's switch this to Y, see what we get. Okay, so this one This one may be the most informative. As we see our sales value increase along the x-axis, we can kind of see how we have increased values, almost initially increasing quickly and then kind of scaling off at the top as far as retail discounts applied to those transactions. The last thing it says is, can you figure out how to change the x and y axis to be formatted as dollar units? Well, what we can actually do is, let's go ahead. So we have our y, and we could scale or use the same package that we saw up here where we did scales, comma. We can use that same package, and they've got a dollar in there. Oh, I need to include label. There we go. So now I've formatted my y-axis values so it's easier to read, and it shows that they are in a dollar format. And I could do the same thing with our y-axis, or excuse me, our x-axis. Now, if we could change the x-axis to be a log transformation, or I could keep it and I could just say, hey, look, I want to take x, and it's a continuous. So this is not going to change my x-axis tick marks as far as a log transformation or anything. But I could just say, hey, for the labels, label, I want to go ahead and do scale dollar. Once again, misspelling causes errors. And there we go. So now we have both our x and y axes formatted to show that they are in a dollar value representation.